Okay, so is it worth building a SRT4 or buying one that's built? Maybe buying one that's built. I'd consider it. I probably wouldn't build one. I really like my SRT4, but it's a lot of money. And if you already own one and you want to build it, by all means, you know, build it. But I'll go ahead and give you some power ranges and everything. Let me pop the hood here real quick. Okay, so if you guys want to, you know, have a car that has upwards a little bit over 300 horsepower or so, the SRT4 might be for you. You could just add some simple bolt-ons, and it's relatively quick and easy and not all too expensive to achieve that. Usually people that build these, they want a little bit more than that. A lot of people put big turbos. The blocks themselves, if they're upkept well and don't have a crap ton of miles on them, usually will hold lower 400 horsepower, mid 400s, you know, without being too risky. I mean, usually at that point people are running race gas or on E85, but much more than that, usually the rods are kind of the weak points in these. It isn't necessarily the pistons. But if you want to make something like that, you know, maybe this is what you're looking for. They're relatively easy to mod. See, that's little tiny turbo. Big turbo's like double that size, but they're relatively easy to mod, not super expensive. If you're looking to buy an SRT4 and make one fast, you know, it's not necessarily the wrong car to do it to, but there's better cars, you know. If you really like it, go ahead and do it, because I love my SRT4, and I'd probably, if I had the extra money, I'd build it. But if you want, you know, more reliable power and you want some more, just buy something that you could put an LS in, you know, turbo and LS, because to build this to lower 400 horsepower is going to be $5,000. I don't care what people say, like, oh, you could spend less than that. I mean, yeah, you could buy used parts, but if you want stuff new and you want to do it on a relatively decent budget, $5,000 is probably your bet. $3,000 for a turbo kit, and that's like, you know, basically almost everything you need. And then you're going to spend another $300 on the tuner. You got $3,300. You're going to spend another $500 on a 3-inch exhaust, and I mean, you could spend more or less depending where you get it from. You're going to need to go get it tuned, so there's going to be another $400 or $500, and there's going to be a bunch of little stuff that kind of gets in the way. So basically $5,000. And by the time you're by the time you're $5,000 into this, you could have built something, you know, a turbo LS that made 600 horsepower versus only making, you know, low 400s with this. And, you know, it depends. Like, if you already own one of these and you like it a lot, then go, by all means, build it. But if you're looking for a platform to build on, just consider that you could make something faster for the same amount of money. And I mean, you know, people have their reasons on why to build it and whatnot, or what car they want to build. So take that into consideration with a grain of salt. Another thing is, if you run street tires and not radials or anything like that, you're never going to get traction, ever. I don't care what people say. On a big turbo car, you will almost never win from a stop. You always have to go from a dig. They just don't have any traction. My friend has he hasn't dynoed it, but it's 11.5 second SRT4 and probably still has more in it, but hasn't dynoed it or anything. So I mean, my guess would probably be anywhere from 450, 500 horsepower in it, and he could floor it in third at, you know, going 30, 40 miles per hour, and once it starts getting up in a boost, literally can't keep any kind of traction, and it's kind of scary, not gonna lie. That's another thing. Like, if you want to build something else that's, you know, all-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive, you're not gonna have that traction problem like you have with these. And it's not to say that, like, you know, you can't put slicks on it and like improve the traction, but if you want to street one of these with 400 horsepower, you're just not going to get traction, because I mean, it doesn't make sense to have that soft of a tire, and if you're going to almost daily drive it, it just doesn't make any sense. But I mean, obviously 400 horsepower is quite a bit of fun in like a little 3,000 pound Neon, and people get extremely butthurt when they lose to this, because this is, or lose to them, I should say. This is relatively slow. This is basically all stock, and I could keep up with Mustang GTs. If it's a person that doesn't really know how to drive stick that well, I could beat them. If it's an automatic, we're talking about like new edges, the 4.6 engines, or I guess a little bit past new edge too, but If they don't know how to drive really well, if it's an automatic, I could usually beat them, even from a stop even. But even from a stop, I spin tires and they usually don't unless they're dropping the clutch. So, but that's just kind of my quick overview of it, if it's worth building one of these. If you want to make anything over 500 horsepower, you're probably going to have to build the engine. I mean, you know, people get away with it, but I mean, do you want something reliable? You're going to have to build the engine on these. And to pull out the engine and build it, you know, a conservative estimate would be $3 grand, and that's not even like that's really conservative. That's saying you do most of the work too, and like that's, you know, you basically have the engine put together, but you take it out yourself and everything like that, and that's like not even upgrading the fuel rails or anything. Oh, and by the way, another $500 or so probably for injectors too, so there's close to my $5,000 estimate originally. But yeah, that's like without new fuel rails. I mean, a lot of people end up going with the MSD coil pack instead. You know, different intake. If you want like high horsepower, you're gonna have to change out that intake normally. I mean, if you're making mild, you know, 400 horsepower is fine with that intake. But if you want to make, you know, 500-600, you're gonna have to replace the intake. And then there's just so much to do. Motor mounts, you have to get solid motor mounts. Just, it'll nickel and dime you, because it sounds cool to put a big turbo on this. It's like, oh, it kit's $2,500. Well, there's a lot of supporting stuff you're gonna have to do, because I can tell you right now, these motor mounts will not support a big turbo, because I have cracked my oil pan at the drag strip with just stock turbo, and you know, the engine moving around and not dropping the clutch, but you know, launching at like 3,000 RPM or so. But yeah, that's just my quick idea of what I think about turbo, or a big turbo on one of these. So if you like this video, go ahead and like and subscribe and comment, and go ahead and feel free to Okay, so that's just my take on big turboing, or you know, building a SRT4. So, you know, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Do you guys agree? Do you disagree? Is there anything you'd like to add? You know, go ahead and give this video a like. I'd really appreciate it.